Hi everyone, welcome to Module 4. Now in Module 4, we're going to deal with initially the formatting of code and commonly used standards when it comes to how we lay out our code. All right. Now, aside from that, we're also going to deal with strings and logical structures. So there's a lot going on in this module. So we're going to start out with the rules of the game, if you will. We've talked about some of them already. We're going to put it in a context. Okay, so let's start out with comments. Now we've already used the hashtag or the pound symbol for a comment. That comments a single line of code, or from that point in a line of code forward. There's two examples. First example is a single line of code. The next line is a statement. In other languages, you may be required to have a semicolon to delineate the end of that statement for the computer itself. As it goes to process that statement, in Python, it's implicit. In other language, such as, let's say, Java or C++, it's explicit. You must put a semicolon at the end of the statement. Now, on this next line, we have a statement followed by a comment. I often do this to be specific about what's happening on this one line of code or this one statement. This, the one above, could be something that explains what's happening within a block of code. Now, in some languages, we can delineate or identify multiple lines of comments with particular symbols. In Python, we're just using that hashtag. So if you want multiple lines, it's going to look like this. All right. If you don't have one, it's potentially going to be an issue. Okay. All right. The hashtag character only identifies the comment at the beginning. It'd have a problem with this code because it sees text and it doesn't know what's taking place. So we'd catch an error in here. All right. What we can do also is to continue lines of code with the backslash character. Right. The backslash character is a special character, and if we said sum equals 0, we're assigning the value 0 to the variable sum. Sum equals whatever sum is, and add 1 to it. So that's what this plus equals means. It's an incrementer, and you add whatever this value is to the existing value in sum. So now at this point, sum has a value of 1. Add 2 to it. Now it's 3. Add 3 to it. Now it's 6. Add 4 to it. Now it's 10. On this line right here, this is not Python code. If I said print followed by parentheses, sum, then sum would be displayed as 10. This is just erroneously telling us what the value is in sum. So we can likely call this pseudocode. Now, in this example, we are saying sum equals 1 plus. Let's go down to a new line and keep going with the same statement. Go down to a new line, keep. So you remember what I just said previously about some languages have that delineation of a semicolon at the end of the statement. It's implicitly done here. This is explicitly saying, hey, we're not done yet. We're coming down to the next line, and we're going to keep going with that statement. If we're not done yet, we're coming down the next line. We're not done yet, we're coming down the next line. Let's go look at a little bit of code. So here's a comment. Will that work with comments? Backslash, come down, help. Now it doesn't look like a comment. It hasn't changed color. If I try to run it, it's having an issue with the word help. It says, well, if you need help, run the help method. And it may give you some help with whatever you're trying to do. Okay, so that works with those mathematical operations and that kind of statement, but that does not work with the comments. All right. Now, in an English class or a literature class, a writing class, if you will, some things that we do is we have paragraphs, and those paragraphs are logical groupings of thoughts or ideas. They all are connected in some way, some common theme or common idea. And they're separated by a little bit of white space to delineate one grouping of thoughts with another. These are all the same. Here's another group that are not the same as the first one. It may be a continuation. It's like here's step one, now here's step two. Now, in our code, we need to have that same kind of thought or logic taking place. And we'll call that the white space associated with code. Now, here is an IDE of Python with code that's been written for a graphical user interface. All right. We've got the import statement, and we've talked about that in the previous module where we imported math. Now, one of the things that we may do is this second line, and we say from that class of code or that library, import everything. So we imported the library, and then we said, look, go into that library and get me everything. I'm going to use all of it. Import random. Here's another library. Import math could be up there, whatever it may be. And then we have a comment. Now, in the examples that we had over here, the comments were blue. In the example here, the comments are red. That's determined by the IDE that we're dealing with, Integrated Development Environment. In this one, we've got an assignment operation here, and we're assigning the value of strings to a variable called questions. Some more comments. There's a space in between them. Logical groupings. The first logical grouping is number 3, questions for quiz list. Number 4, here's what's taken place. And a little explanation. Some more explanation. Some more explanation. Another logical grouping of something taking place. Explain what's taking place or label it. There it is. And then we'll have some white space in between potentially tasks, ideas. Now this white space allows us to, at some point, we may want to put breakpoints in our code, and we only run it up to a certain point, and if it runs up to that certain point without errors or issues, great. Now let's move to the next breakpoint and see, hey, is this working? Yes, great. Let's move forward. We compartmentalize things, and we'll get used to doing that in modular coding. We'll deal with that in the future, and that modular coding is kind of what's taking place up here. We come up with objects, we come up with functionality. In some languages we call those functions methods, and we can reuse them as needed. We modularize the code. Okay. So that's the rules of the formatting, the syntax. I want you to have the comments in there. I want you to have the white space. Now we're using this Jupyter Notebooks. Now this one's just started. Here's the one from the previous one. Label, cohesive grouping, label, cohesive grouping. That's commented out. I could put a comment up at the beginning. There's so many things that we can do in our workbooks to break it up. Okay, so I could have, these would be labels or comments in a traditional IDE, but in here, it's just our way of being able to communicate using LaTeX. LaTeX is that language. Here's a comment, what's taken place. Okay, so the more comments we've got, the safer we are in the back end. Somebody else comes and sees our code, they understand our thoughts or ideas. I've talked about that in the past. So I'll see you in the next lecture, 4-2.